I'm gonna throw that away. What were you saying?
Nothing. floor, followed by a moment of silence and reflection.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated.
The clerk will call the roll. Please correct the pronunciation of your name if it is incorrect. Just a reminder, if you're proxying, please say proxy.
Lauren Anderson. William Barnes. Timothy Barr. Amanda Blanton. Bella Brash. Natalia Beyer. William Costello. Emma Cumby. Tate Few. Amelia Gay. Caleb Geddens. Kaylee Goodrich. Aiden Gruner. Zoe Hopkins. Daniel Wang. Muhammad Iftikhar. Anita John. Lakika Cassetti. Camden Kay. Tori Kerner. Mila Penta. Donnie Lapsley. Jeffrey Lyons. Jackson Matthews. Isabel Miller. Mackenzie Mozo. Bryson Peterson. Stone Pillsbury. Ainsley Reed. Soraya Ramali. Rodrigo Rojas. Taylor Silkert. Amaya Sowell. William Wenzel. Lawson Windsor. Marion Winters.
With a quorum being present, is there a motion to approve the Journal of October 9th, 2024 as found online? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. We are now in line for general orders of the Senate, beginning with reports from Senate leadership. Speaker Pro Tempore Beyer, you are recognized to give a report on the Rules Committee.
Hi everyone. I hope everybody had a good fall break. So Rules did meet last Sunday at 5:30, but unfortunately we did have to meet on Teams just because everybody was traveling for fall break. We reviewed 3 pieces of legislation, all 3 of which were found favorable. However, all 3 had 1 abstention, or 2 of them had 1 abstention, and 1 piece of legislation had 1 abstention. With that, I yield my time for questions.
The Speaker Pro Tempore yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Speaker Pro Tempore? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for a report from the Academics Committee. Chairwoman Anderson, you are recognized.
Hey guys, so we did not meet this week, but we met last week, and kind of a long update. Lots of exciting things going on. Last week we had the opportunity to meet with the FROCO Academic Committee at our meeting, and they had a couple great ideas, including expanding SI resources, a professional development week, and fixing library broken outlets and other kind of outdated technology. And so we look forward to working with them potentially in the future on a few pieces of legislation and initiatives. As for other updates, Senator Kerner has legislation hitting the floor regarding providing study spot information on the U of SC website. Senator Hopkins and Vice Chairwoman Cumby met with Helen Powers, who is the director of the Career Center, on Senator Hopkins' legislation which passed regarding pre-professional resources, and they're looking into next steps for the legislation and further initiatives. Senator Lapsley is continuing to work on professors' access to YouTube Premium, and Senator Winters met with the director of the Student Disability Resource Center in regards to expanding their spaces throughout CLOSIP and potentially in other areas on campus. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The Chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Finance Committee. Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized to give a report.
Hello everyone. Finance Committee did not meet this past Friday because of fall break, but we met the previous Friday at 3:30 during our normal time. We have our normal bill this week, but with that, there's no real update, so yield my time to questions.
The Chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Health and Safety Committee. Chairman Gruner, you are recognized.
Hey guys, happy Wednesday. I hope you all had a great fall break. Health and Safety met on Thursday the 10th at 4:30 p.m. We discussed various pieces of legislation, the various tabling events that we're working on. We also recapped some meetings with health representatives outside of student government. Shout out to Senator John for reaching out and meeting with representatives from the Center of Health and Wellbeing. On a separate note, we finished the domestic violence tabling event. We gathered over 100 responses and questions from students that will be brought to the panel tomorrow. I want to make a personal shout out and thank you to Senator Barr, whose coordination and initiative made all of this possible. And the Health and Safety Committee enjoyed working with Kappa Alpha Psi on these tabling events, and we wish them the best of luck on their Break the Silence and Domestic Violence event. I would also like to thank the following SG members for volunteering their time, and this is based off the attendance sheet. Please don't get mad at me if I butcher your name. Myron Harris, Zoe Hopkins, Emma Cumby, Donnie Lapsley, Addison Thornton, Abby Gobel, Simone Miles, Anita John, and Bryson Peterson. Thank you all so much for volunteering your time and making this event possible. We also have 2 tabling events next week for the SIP Safe Carolina. Senator Blanton has been leading and pursuing this initiative, and we'll explain the details shortly about it. The committee also voted on SBL 11626, sponsored by Chairman Barnes, and was found unanimously favorable. And finally, our committee will be continuing to work on legislation going into November. We currently have 7 health-related pieces of legislation in the works, and those will hopefully be hitting the floor within the next 3 weeks. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Chairman Gruner, you are now again recognized.
Long time no see, guys. I'm just going to read this directly. Hi, everyone. I hope you all had an enjoyable fall break. In the past week, we talked with Lauren Clark, the Director of Undergrad Research, along with other members for research that work with students to actively encourage them in getting involved. This meeting gave some directive to our initiative to encourage involvement around students. We also met with Jamie Howell from the LSC to learn more about multicultural organizations. The committee met yesterday at 5:30 p.m. and we talked a little bit more about individual initiatives that each senators are working on and how to refine some of our committee initiatives as well going into the next semester. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Judiciary Committee. Chairman Kaye, you are recognized.
Good afternoon. I missed the old microphone, by the way. This one's a little more sad. The Judiciary Committee did not meet this last week, but we did meet the week prior. We went over SBL 24 and 25, both written by Chairman Barnes. One to amend the codes regarding inauguration, the other to update the obligations of senators. Both were found unanimously favorable by the committee. If anyone has any questions as to the reasonings of the committee, feel free to ask away. With that, I will yield.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Chairman Pillsbury, you are recognized.
Hey everyone, I hope you had a great fall break. Powers did not meet this past week because of fall break. However, we did meet a couple of weeks ago on the 8th to conduct an interview for a vacant seat candidate who was found favorable. And we have 3 more interviews scheduled for this coming week, this Friday and this Sunday. Those 3 interviews are for vacant seat senators. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Student Life Committee. Chairman Barnes, you are recognized.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Hope you all had a good break. Student Life did not meet this week, but we're meeting today after Senate. We're going to be working on our individual initiatives along with our committee-wide one. We also found SBL 11626 unanimously favorable, which was a piece of legislation that I wrote that's on the second reading calendar today. And with that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the Sustainability Committee. Chairwoman LaPinto, you are recognized.
Hi guys. So we met this past week over Zoom at 6 p.m. on Monday. Senator Kerner has a piece of legislation hitting the floor this week regarding e-waste recycling. And I anticipate multiple pieces of legislation hitting the floor next week from the committee, which I'm really excited about. Senator Gettins also began speaking with Larry Cook regarding installation of recycling bins at the Satellite Nursing Building in Lexington, which has already begun to progress. You know, I got an email from yesterday and it's already picking up, so super awesome about that. I also have set up a bi-weekly meeting with Abby Scobie and Chandler Hines, 2 of the freshman council representatives. One is the Senate liaison, the other one is the Sustainability Committee chairwoman. So we're just kind of establishing that consistent communication. And with that, I'll yield to questions.
The chairwoman yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairwoman? Seeing none, thank you. We will now hear a report from the freshman council. Are there any representatives from the freshman council present? Y'all can come on down. And just introduce yourselves and tell us your hometown as well.
My name is Loren Pachalski. I'm from Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I'm on the DEI committee.
Hi, y'all. My name is Zoe Mason Darnell. I'm from Austin, Texas, and I'm on the academics committee. So at our freshman council meeting this week, we established a new tradition of committee reports. So we had the chair of each committee report on what the committee was doing and recent accomplishments of the committee. Emily and Patrick then covered some logistical matters. They introduced the required FROCO volunteer hours and showed us how to request them on Garnet Gate. After that, they shared the date for the mentor-mentee reveal, which will be November 7th. This week, some of you may have already received them, but possible mentees will be sending out text messages to people they would like to have buddy dates with. Please respond to them as quickly as possible. Additionally, if there's anyone who you would like to reach out to and establish a buddy date, please feel free to do that.
Some upcoming events that FROCO will be helping out in are the Halloween trick-or-treating at the President's House and the Carolina Civility Week that's going on this week. Expect to see FROCO members helping at SG tabling events. Our meeting on Monday closed with 2 presentations. The first was by Pearson from Cabinet, who spoke on how to use AI properly in an academic setting. And then we heard from Camden on the Judiciary Committee and introduced what the committee does to us new FROCO members and explained that he's rewriting all the codes. Thank you.
Do you yield your time to questions?
Sorry. We yield to questions.
The freshman council representatives yield their time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Can we give them a round of applause, please? All right. We will now hear a report from the Constitutional Council. Chief Justice Buchmeyer, you are recognized.
Evening, everybody. Still back at it with nothing to report. With that, I'll yield to questions.
The Chief Justice yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the Chief Justice? Seeing none, thank you.
Y'all.
We will now hear a report from the Speaker of the Senate, Maura Hamilton. Maura Hamilton, you are recognized. Because I'm back, guys. Hey, I have a lot to update y'all on, so please pay attention. First off, missed y'all last week. I was so sad when it was 5:30 on Wednesday and I wasn't here, and I hope that y'all felt the same. Some quick updates. So Chairwoman Anderson's legislation passed, obviously, about freshman council proxying, which is going to begin next week. Just to explain how that's going to work, you're going to see the normal form that you fill out when you proxy, except now you're going to see an extra tick mark that you can indicate that you would like to have a member of freshman council be your proxy. It is by all means optional. It is not required for your proxy to be a member of freshman council. You can still pick somebody from Senate, but it's highly encouraged that the freshman council members get that opportunity to take part in Senate. If you do select a freshman council proxy, they will be reaching out to you. I will be providing all of you with a template that you're basically going to fill out, and it's going to be on you guys. You're going to have to look at the calendar, look at the legislation, and tell that proxy how you would like to vote. They're not going to speak or anything on your behalf. All they're going to do is if we say your name, they're going to say proxy aye or nay, the way that a normal proxy would. If something last minute comes up, they'll try and contact you during Senate, or they'll just abstain because they don't know how you would vote. But once again, completely optional, but highly encouraged. The freshman council members are going to be the people sitting here in 2 or 3 years when all of us are unfortunately gone. So we want to make sure that they get the chance now to participate in Senate. Second thing, if you are in powers and responsibilities, there are 11 of y'all. I'm not doing a public call out yet, but I would like for all of you right now to take out your phones, to look at the Powers and Responsibilities GroupMe, and to respond to the availability form. This is one of the most important committees that we have within Senate, and we can't confirm our vacancy applicants without y'all, and we have so many people applying, and it's not very fair to Chairman Pillsbury if it takes forever to schedule those interviews. Plus, I want to meet all of these new people that are interested in joining Senate. So please take out your phones right now, look at your GroupMe, fill out that form, and please be responsive to those text messages because that's super important that y'all are attending, you're watching the interviews, and you're voting accordingly. And if you feel like you can't handle the time commitment, that's okay, but make sure that you're either leaving the committee or you're finding ways to make that time commitment. Also, y'all should have heard from your delegation chairs. If you haven't, please let me know, but hopefully y'all should. I met with them about 2 weeks ago. Y'all should be meeting with people that are in charge of whatever delegation you're in, and I asked each delegation chair for all of y'all to produce at least one recommendation by Thanksgiving break, so hopefully y'all are doing great work on that. I also have been working on some legislation advocacy for y'all, and I just want to share with you some updates just so you guys understand that your legislation does have impact. I reached out about Senator Goodrich's legislation regarding schedule planner. Turns out that was already in the works, and you guys will be getting communication about schedule planner tomorrow from the registrar's office. I reached out to the Caroliniana Library about the bus. That was legislation that came from former Senator Morgan, and they let us know that they would not be returning the bus, but that they would be out for temporary installations throughout the year. And I reached out to U101 leadership about Senator Goodrich and Chairman Gruner's legislation regarding school shooting safety modules, and they said that they were looking into it and that they would bring it to the curriculum, committee. So sorry, this is a long update. So just a good reminder that once you guys pass legislation, it doesn't just go off into the abyss. It doesn't just get printed on a fancy sheet of paper and put in a filing cabinet. I go and I send the emails and I do the work for y'all, so hopefully y'all are working on producing legislation and you guys can tell that you're making a real change on campus. With that, last thing for me, we have 5 Senate sessions left. This is one of them until Christmas break, so I'd love to see the legislation picking up. If you guys have any questions about legislation at all, please, please, please contact me, member of our staff, contact your committee chairs. They'd be more than happy to help you, but your legislation really, truly does make a difference, and I've been getting very excited hearing about all of y'all's super exciting ideas. And actual last thing I forgot to say, Chairman Kay will be introducing the first codes changes today. During the motion period, he's going to be asking to motion them on to the first reading calendar. If y'all approve that, they're going to be there. I will be sending those codes changes to all committees. So everybody in this room should be reading those changes. They are very, very important. Y'all know the codes are what run our organization. They are the backbone of this organization, and we're making real changes that change how we operate as an organization every single day. So it's very important that y'all actually sit down, you actually look at what's being changed, you ask questions if you have any questions, and we all make sure that we understand what is going to be the new codes if they are approved. But with that, I yield my time to questions. Does anybody have any questions for me? Speaker Pro Tem Portmeyer. It would probably be more effective for a vice chairperson, or in your case, a committee chairperson, to give the report for your committee instead. Yeah. Does anybody have any other questions? All right. Seeing none, we are now in line for a report from the Student Body Treasurer. Student Body Treasurer Jacob Vaught, you are recognized.
Hey everyone. Might be a little bit slow responding to emails recently. Got an exam coming up, a few exams. 65,000 has been requested for this next Team Finance Committee, so they'll be enjoying that. 25 requests are ready to move on to their stage on Friday. Of course, we'll have to schedule those, so it might not be 25 by the time it gets there. Might be more. We have 10 additional requests at the comptroller stage. And they may be at the committee stage, depending on how fast we move through all the other stages. Additionally, a few reimbursements have been processed. So we have the first few organizations who've actually started utilizing our budget, like they've actually gone through the whole entire process. And I've got a whole bunch more of a backlog getting ready to do. So there'll be a few, I work on my reimbursements on the weekend, so I'll be processing those soon. Working with Senator Kay and some people in FROCO to look into changes in the future for the branch, looking at ways to simplify our system, hopefully. Again, it's going to go through Senate, but we're just looking in more exploratory. Met with the treasurer from 2012 to 2013, who governed the transition from the semester system to the rolling basis, to discuss the differences and why they changed. To look, again, this feeds back into the previous statement I'd made. We're meeting with College of Charleston's treasurer tomorrow to discuss how they run their system and possibly to help them get their system up and running more efficiently as well. We developed a few automations for the branch, very simple LLM, so it's a large language model to answer questions and do some of my emails for me to simplify that. Created automatic filtering software as well, looking for more simplifications. William's definitely been enjoying that new software, and a few other people hopefully soon, so we can get that out. Internal budget, I've been told we'll be making more requests soon, so hopefully we'll use that budget entirely by the end of the year, so March for us. And with that, yield to questions.
The student body treasurer yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Vice Chairwoman Miller.
They should have their money, but I will talk with Matt Hines about it. I'd love to talk with them if we can meet up after this after Senate. I'll be in my office. If you'd like to come, I'd like to chat with them.
They're autonomous to us. Like, they get it from the university. That doesn't have to do with Jacobs Branch. Are there any other questions for the student body treasurer? Seeing none, thank you. We're now in line for a report from the student body vice president. Vice President Courtney Tox, you are recognized.
Hey everyone, I don't have a super long report today. Just some updates. We had our first Carolina Civility Week this week. We have had events yesterday, today, and we have an event tomorrow, which I think we had over 200 people interact. We interacted with over 200 people today, gave out 183 Pelican snowballs, and then we gave out all of our Dunkin' gift cards yesterday, and then tomorrow we will have Clutch Coffee. So please come talk to some of our professors about engaging in civil discourse tomorrow. Again, Clutch Coffee will be there. Next, going off of what Speaker Hamilton said, Senate proxies, FROCO Senate proxies will be starting next week. We have the list of everyone that is interested. And if you are interested in potentially having a FROCO member step in for you, please give them that opportunity. They are very, very excited. And I've also really made it known to them that they obviously cannot vote the way they want to, and they have to vote the way that you guys want to. So I've really kind of tried to drill that into them. Again, if you have any events coming up, please fill out the newsletter form on Garnet Gate. This will give my press secretary the information to make sure that that goes out every Sunday. If you aren't receiving that newsletter every Sunday, please let me know. I will make sure that your email gets added to the MailChimp. And then, again, we're going to have FROCO members reach out to you in the next few weeks or next week about going on dates. But we will have another mixer next Monday, and I will send you guys an email with more information on that. And then Big Little Reveal is November 6th. It got moved from the 7th to the 6th. So please mark that on your calendars, November 6th, Big Little Reveal. I'm really excited. They're very excited. So please interact with them. They're super sweet. And they have a lot of great ideas. And yeah, with that, I yield my time to questions.
The student body vice president yields her time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. We're now in line for a report from the student body president. President Patton Byers, you are recognized.
Alrighty, I hope everyone had a good fall break. Hopefully everyone stayed out of trouble. So on my fall break, I went to the Oklahoma game with members of the Board of Trustees and our university administration, where we were able to tour buildings. Some of those buildings that included in that tour were the Student Union, library, and their new residence hall that they're currently building. And it was really interesting to see some of the differences and nuances of how they do things and versus how we do things. For example, their new residence hall that's being built right now, for 4 people, you're still sharing 1 bathroom. So it's relatively communal, which is very different than what we are building here at the university and what we're more and more looking at, which is more 1 bed, 1 bathroom per person. So not as much sharing. So it was just interesting to see that and to see some of the study spaces they've created in the library. And so that was certainly interesting and obviously good to see the Gamecocks win as always. I've been working with Rex, the president, Courtney Bazan, and Gamecock Entertainment, Jared at the Alumni Association, who's the chief experience officer, on a Last Night Carolina idea. And that's very similar to what you think of First Night Carolina, but just a last night, except it won't be during school time. It would be the Thursday before that Friday of your graduation times. So that's for seniors to experience their last sandstorm, the last 2001 on campus, so on and so forth. And the Alumni Association is really excited about this. And I mean, everyone's really, it seems excited about this. And hopefully it's centered around jumping in the fountain. So even if you don't win a national championship, you still can jump in at least once as a student. So we're looking at some ideas with that, hopefully starting that in May 2025. My team is doing research on the idea of flipping the student section or the cameras for the basketball student section. So right now, currently, if you look at it on a TV, it shows where the mainly donors sit, and Gamecock Club season ticket holders instead of the student section, which is not usually how it goes in other SEC schools and other bigger institutions for basketball teams, men and women's. So I think a lot of us think that causes a look as if we aren't a big and exciting fan base, which isn't true. So I want to make sure that we can show that as much as possible. So we're doing research on how other schools do it and why they switched and so on and so forth. We're looking at planning an SG-wide in November with the hopes of having the president come and give us university updates, talking about just master plan things like that. So you can answer a lot more of y'all's questions on those as well. I'm partnering with Dance Marathon on November 13th for a Pie the President. Sounds like our vice president's very excited to pie me, I'm sure as many of y'all are as well. So it will be to donate for a good cause to Dance Marathon. And we're gonna have some other presidents of other organizations there as well. So should be a good time. My cabinet is also working on several initiatives like the GR survey, athletics forever to the rivalry, academic policy changes. Myself and our Deputy Secretary of Academics is speaking to all the deans of the university and our provost and president next week, so hopefully that goes well. And we're doing some other things as well with community engagement too. So there should be more use of the internal initiative budget as well. We're also working on speaking of that, we're working on bringing a rage room to campus sometime right before final exams, and that's being worked with. My Secretary of Health and Wellness is taking the charge on that one. So hopefully we can bring that to Green Street or Davis Field. We're also looking into the idea of buying a bulk order of blue books for students during exam week. Most other student governments do this. In the SEC, we're kind of one of the few that doesn't. So I want us to do this. And the Student Success Center does currently do this, but there's only so much you could do. And also we have a little bit better of a ability to pass it out with us being in the student union and so close to so many students in and out of their way to their next exam. So that I think it'd be a great idea if we can get that and help it take a couple stress off of some of our students on campus. And we also had a successful safety walk with over 50 students in attendance. Our last one was the highest attended safety walk ever, and then this one just beat that one as well. So hopefully we keep that positive momentum. It was great. Hopefully we see some better lighting on our campus, more ADA requirements being met, and so on and so forth. So with that, I yield to questions.
The student body president yields his time to questions. Are there any questions?
I almost always have questions. Oh, one more thing. I've been working with Caleb Geddens and our Speaker of the Student Senate on more study space on our campus in general, but especially in the nursing school. We've seen some positive momentum on that, so I thank both of them for their hard work on that, and hopefully that's just the beginning of study space on our campus, and we see a more momentum coming that from all sources and places on our campus, so thank you all too.
All right, any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. We are now in line for special orders of the Senate. Are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
Application of Tommy Spurgeon, Kiki Diapolito, and Lucas Solomon to be seated in the 116th Student Senate.
The nominees are referred to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Continuing on with special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read.
A communication from the Speaker of the Student Senate concerning committee assignments. Grant Dworzowski, Finance, Powers and Responsibilities, and Judiciary Committees.
Received. Continuing on with the special orders of the Senate, are there any letters, petitions, appointments, applications, or other? The clerk will now read. Seeing no more special orders of the Senate, we are now in the motion period. Are there any motions on the floor at this time? Senator Lapsley. There's been a motion to remove Senator Lapsley from the Academics Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Chairman Kaye. There's been a motion to add two bills to the calendar, SBL XX and SBL XX1, regarding chapters 4 and 5 respectively. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is added to the first reading calendar. Are there any other motions on the floor? Senator Lapsley. There's been a motion to add Senator Lapsley to the Powers and Responsibilities Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Sowell. There's been a motion to remove Senator Sowell from the Inclusion and Equity Committee. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Any other motions on the floor at this time? Chairman Pillsbury. Is there a motion to confirm the nominee first? There's been a motion to confirm the nominee, Grant Dworzanowski, to the position of 116th student senator. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The nominee is confirmed. Chairman Pillsbury. Motion to suspend the rules? There's been a motion to suspend the rules to allow the nominee to be sworn in. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now suspended. Chairman Kay. There's been a motion to reinstate the rules. Is there a second? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The rules are now reinstated. Are there any other motions on the floor at this time? Seeing no more motions, is there a motion to dispense of this motion period? Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Is there a motion for a brief recess to remediate the calendar with the new legislation? Without objection, so ordered. Did people leave? Did people leave? What? But they're just using the bathroom. Does somebody want to go, like, run and grab them, perhaps? Okay. I just didn't know who he was. I was like, I'm taking photos of me. In the club, we all fam. I need one day somebody's gonna video me like while I'm up here. And the clear we all, me trying to relate to all 47 of them and them just going. Okay. All right. The Senate will now come to order. We are now on the call of the introduction of new legislation. The clerk will read.
SBL 11627, introduced by Chairman Wenzel, a recommendation to permit the Finance Committee to allocate funds.
Chairman Wenzel, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hello, everyone. Finance Committee reviewed $16,888.18 2 weeks ago, and we approved the lot. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Vice Chairman Matthews. There's been a motion to appoint Chairman Wenzel as Vice Chairman Matthews proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Granted. He could have left during the recess. That's okay. Are there any other questions for the chairman at this time? Seeing none, thank you. Chairman Barnes. There's been a motion to pass SBL 11627 by acclamation. Without objections, the legislation is now adopted. Continuing on with the call of the introduction of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBL 11628, introduced by Senator Kerner, a recommendation to encourage the university to prioritize the sustainability of electronic recycling and student education on resources.
Senator Kerner, you are recognized to speak on the legislation.
Hello, everybody. So the last few Senate sessions we've had, the Sustainability Committee has mentioned that we're working on an initiative for electronic recycling. And so this recommendation is essentially to get the ball rolling on that, show the university that we are interested in it and want it to happen. And it's to, we wanted to increase ways for student engagement in recycling of electronics. And we had a meeting with the Director of Sustainability on campus, Larry Cook, and he showed a keen interest in this initiative and is very hopeful that we can actually make stuff happen on campus, specifically during Sustainability Month, which October is coming to an end, but electronic recycling never ends. And so that would take place during events like Green on Green. And this is really important to a lot of the sustainability folks on campus because universities are one of the #1 institutions that produce a lot of the electronic waste that is acclimated in the nation. Universities usually average around 100 tons every year. Our campus in 2023 produced about 132 tons of electronic waste, and most of it is not disposed of property, hence why we want to educate students on campus of how to do that. I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Iftikhar. There's been a motion to appoint Senator Windsor as Senator Iftikhar's proxy. Is there a second? Without objection, so ordered. Senator Iftikhar. Granted. Chairman Kaye.
Yeah. So that would be from your iPhone to any like household item. So that's like what it counts as a lot of it is when you count it globally would be people's like laundry machines or things like that. But you know, on a regular university campus, it would be like professors' computer systems and stuff. So this legislation is important because it'll urge the university to take a look at their state contracts and everything to kind of get the logistics of what we can do.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to the Sustainability Committee. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SB 11630, introduced by Chairman Kaye, a bill to amend Chapter 4 of these student government codes.
1 second. 29, the one that isn't highlighted.
SB 11629, introduced by Senator Kerner, a recommendation to urge the university to include more details and information about study locations on campus.
Senator Kerner, you are once again recognized.
Hi again. So this recommendation is to kind of ask the university to make their website a little bit more detailed and include more information regarding study spots on campus. Like while yes, the university does have these on their websites, it's not detailed. They just have like descriptions. But one thing we were looking at was like Clemson, for example, on their website, they have a list of at least 10 of their spots on campus, and they have opening and closing times of these rooms. They have descriptions of what the room is like. So that would be like, if you're taking classes in this building, then you can study here. If not, you can't. And that's good information to know so you don't show up and waste your time, obviously. And then if they're group or individual study rooms, if they include late night studying, so they have some rooms that are open till 2:30 in the morning. And so our website doesn't really have as much details, and this has created a problem in the sense that the most advertised study spot for our campus is T-Coop. And if you go to T-Coop on the busy exam dates, you're not finding a spot in there because the study traffic is so heavy. So the academics committee has been trying to create an initiative where we figure out a way to advertise newer or study spots on campus that students might have an interest in doing, so we can kind of decrease that traffic. And I yield my time to questions.
The senator yields her time to questions. Are there any questions for the senator? Senator Bland.
Kind of more so where they're available and what you can do there. I mean, a lot of people don't know, for example, the Science and Tech building has like great study spot locations. And so that would be important things to know.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Senator Geddens.
Yeah, this piece specifically, I did not have that intended, but that is interesting for the academics committee to further include that in our initiatives.
Are there any other questions for the senator? Seeing no more questions, the legislation is now referred to the academics committee. Give her a round of applause. Those were her first two pieces. Continuing on with the call of legislation, the clerk will now read.
SB 11630, introduced by Chairman Kaye, a bill to amend Chapter 4 of these student government codes.
Chairman Kaye, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
I have a whole lot of stuff. I'm sorry. Give me just a second. All right, guys. This is to amend Chapter 4, which is the elections codes. I've been sitting down working with some senators as well as Sean Duty, who's the election commissioner, and talking with some of the election officers to deal and hammer out some of these. I'm going to quickly try and go through some of the major changes as well as some of the minor ones. I'd argue the biggest one is there's nearly a 2,000-word reduction, which constitutes several pages worth of material that has been removed from this. Things that were considered unnecessary, superfluous, language that was confusing, and a few other pieces. So there was just a major reduction in the actual word count following kind of our previous attempts to make these codes a little easier to read and a little quicker to read, because Lord knows they need them sometimes. For that, what I've created inside of this, let's see, where to start. The Elections Commission as an entity will be given some more autonomy, particularly from the elections or from the rest of the student government. Previously, the only people who had authority over the Elections Commission was the president. I made it to where during elections, the president could not exert authority over the Elections Commission in the removal of officers. The intent there is to give them some protection during elections and to prevent a problematic situation. I also made it to where no members of student government in any branch could affect the Elections Commission in the operation of their duties. We're trying to make sure that this is an entity that is, while inside student government, not being influenced by the current sitting members in any way that could constitute a negative bias on any elections. Let's see. I also, another large one is and this will come up in the next bill, I took out everything related to the Constitutional Council and put it under Chapter 5, which is what the Constitutional Council, their judicial branch section is. So I did make sure to clean up after the language, so anything that refers back to that is indicated inside of Chapter 4, but I just wanted to make sure we differentiated between the responsibilities of the different branches and where they're located as it stands right now. If I wanted to go look and find all of the Constitutional Council requirements, they're found in like everywhere inside this document, and I want all of their stuff to be in one place, and then it's just referenced back by other pieces inside the codes. Another large piece is elections, how they actually operate. Previously, we had a soft and a hard campaigning session. I made it just one campaigning session. The distinction between soft and hard has generally been something where it's been confused. It constitutes a significant number of the election violations. There were a couple of other pieces. I can go into more detail if anyone has any questions about that. Another thing was campaign finance, and this one, there is going to be a marginal increase in the individual spending limits for senators and for executives. I'm trying to strike a middle balance between the general two factions that arise with spending limits. There tend to be two types, one of which who wants no limits and one of which who wants very restrictive limits. I'm trying to find a way to sit between those two that pleases everybody. Again, this is a more complicated piece with a lot more reasonings behind it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them now or later, whichever one is at your pleasure. Let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find, there's a lot of stuff got changed, but a lot of it was just administrative. I sat down with Sean Duty, as I mentioned previously. He went over and we worked on this together to kind of go, here's what the Election Council actually does, or the Elections Commission actually does, and we updated a lot of language regarding that. So there are some things that did get changed that were mostly just because they were outdated and they got updated to what we kind of operate, or how we kind of operate now. Elections violations got shortened a good deal. They were made to be very easy to understand. Previously, there was a lot of obscure and obfuscated language that we thought people would or potentially could not understand. And inauguration also, Article 7 was completely removed and the pieces were placed under the inauguration article. Those pieces were just about the responsibility of executive officers being present, whether physically or in duty, during the training periods in the summer and spring. I think that's most of what I have. I'm sorry for talking so long, but I think a lot of this is important, and I highly, highly, highly recommend you read all of this because I can make mistakes contrary to beliefs, and I really want to make sure we have the best codes as possible. So with that, I will yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Senator Gettins.
Yep. Absolutely. So one of the things that we were looking at for an increase is how to combat inflation. That was generally the piece. I did some calculations based off the current limits, and I found that a 3% increase over the course of a decade would constitute a $50 increase for executives and a $15 increase for senatorial races. Obviously, like, someone might come in later, think all of that's stupid, and change it. I can't prevent that from happening, but I did, like I mentioned previously, wanted to find a way where I can please just about everybody. My general note was people tend to go, what I've seen in other institutions and in ours historically, is you get groups in that don't like it and they drop it incredibly, and then people come in and they don't like it being low and they raise it incredibly, and I'm just trying to keep it where it kind of does this a little bit and everyone's just a little bit happy. They don't have to be very happy, just a little happy.
Senator Gettins.
2 years. It was actually implemented 2 years ago. There's a good number of institutions outside of the University of South Carolina that have them. Generally, the things that I've heard are when they're too low, people break the rules, they get ignored. And so I'm really trying to avoid that. But when they're too high or they don't exist at all, you can have problems with that, obviously. That isn't very fair, it's not equitable, because you can definitely have people with exterior influences or just money that can bulldoze through. So I'm a fan of having a limit. I'm also a fan of making sure that it is a viable limit for elections.
If you have any questions about campaign finances, I'd be happy to answer as well, because there's a lot of backstory on that one for sure. Are there any other questions for the chairman? Senator Brash.
So it doesn't. We had 2 weeks of campaigning periods. I didn't change the 2-week period. I just changed what could be done inside the 2 weeks. My general thought was, particularly like when I did it, when I ran, I had a period of the week of hard campaigning when I probably should have been tabling more where I had exams. So I just wasn't able to. So I was like, let's remove this distinction. Honestly, I've asked people, and I don't know if anybody actually knows why the distinction exists. Maybe at one point it had a very valid reason. I don't know anybody who knows that anymore.
I know. Before we had campaign spending limits, which was a very recent change, I believe that the reason that this was instituted was to make it more equitable. Because if somebody has more money and more resources and they can spend however much they want, they could do a lot more with 2 weeks than they could with one. But that obviously is not a thing anymore. Are there any other questions for the chairman? Seeing no more questions, this legislation is now referred to all committees. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will read.
SBO 11631, introduced by Chairman Kaye, a bill to amend Chapter 5 of the Student Government Code.
Chairman Kaye, you're once again recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hey guys, I'm back. So this one comes in tandem with the other ones, so please, 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 if we're going to deal with these two, they kind of have to be done together. Partially because, as I mentioned previously, this is the part that I took out of Chapter 4 regarding Constitutional Council cases, and I put it into Chapter 5. So if we adopt one, we really need to adopt the other, otherwise we're going to have a weird situation with campaign violations where the Constitutional Council won't be able to operate. So please, please, please don't, let's pass either kill them both or let them pass both. Preferably the latter rather than the former. But what this, as mentioned previously, does is just takes everything regarding the Constitutional Council and their court cases and move it where it should be, under the Constitutional Council sections. I'll yield to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing no more question, the legislation is referred to all committees. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will read. Seeing none, we are now on the call of the uncontested legislation. The clerk will now read.
SBO 11624, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a bill to amend the codes pertaining to inauguration.
Chairman Barnes, you are recognized to speak on this legislation.
Hey everyone. So pretty simple bill, kind of like what I went over last week. It's just establishing that you have to be sworn in, whether you're an exec or Senate candidate, you have to be sworn in by a certain date. The specific timeline with that is following the official inauguration ceremony, the officers shall be held, the inauguration ceremony shall be held no later than 4 weeks following that. And then following that inauguration ceremony, you have 1 week to get sworn in, just to make sure that everyone assumes their position. With that, I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing no more questions, we will now move to a voice vote on the legislation. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of new legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 11625, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a bill to update the obligations of a senator.
Chairman Barnes, you are once again recognized to speak on the legislation.
All right, so another simple bill. All it's saying is that once a semester, we'll have a student senate orientation training, which is up to the speaker's discretion. Basically just kind of going over rules of procedure, how to write legislation, whatever they want. And then it's also mandating SG-wide events, and that has to be approved by all 4 exec members. And that notice has to be 2 weeks before the event takes place. So that's kind of just to make sure we're fulfilling our job as senators and working collectively in student government. So I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing no more questions, we will now move to a voice vote on the legislation. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read.
SBO 11626, introduced by Chairman Barnes, a recommendation to enhance university housing web pages with centralized and accessible information for all students.
Chairman Barnes, you are once again recognized to speak on the legislation.
Once again, kind of like I said last week, this is just kind of phase 1 of what I'm working with the SDRC and housing, just trying to make the website more equitable for all students, whether you have a disability or not. So this one's just saying that the housing services will provide a very brief list of what type of disabilities can be accommodated for in housing units. And then it's also kind of setting the ball rolling for future legislation on being specific with different housing units. So I yield my time to questions.
The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing no more questions, we will now move to a voice vote on the legislation. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. The legislation is adopted. Continuing on with the call of uncontested legislation, the clerk will now read. Hearing none, we are now on the call of contested legislation. The clerk will now read. Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of open discussion. Does any senator wish to bring a matter of attention to the body? Seeing none, we are now in line for a period of announcements. Are there any announcements from the floor? Chairman Barnes.
Just a quick reminder, student life is meeting after we get out of summer.
All right. Do you yield your time to questions? The chairman yields his time to questions. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Senator Brash. Do you yield your time to questions? Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Senator Bland. Yeah, so just send me a selfie of you there, and that will forgive an unexcused attendance that y'all have. Are there any questions? Seeing none, Senator Goodrich. Are there any questions for the senator? Seeing none, thank you. Senator Gruner.
So really quickly, I just dropped in the 116th Senate. Senator Mozo is currently working on a piece of legislation regarding fee transparency with the Student Health Center. So she's created a survey form that kind of targets the
Are there any questions for the chairman? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other announcements on the floor at this time? Senator Barr. Here as in the theater? Okay, perfect. Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Are there any other announcements on the floor? Wow, that was so fun. All of y'all were talking. Hearing none, I just have a quick announcement. Once again, just please make sure checking your GroupMes, you're checking your emails, all that good stuff. Emphasis on powers and responsibilities with all the peace and love in the world. If somebody doesn't fill out the form, I will be reading your name aloud next week. So fill it out, please. Other than that, I yield my time to questions. Does anybody have questions about what I just said or what I said during my update? All right, and if y'all have any questions about the code changes, especially those pertaining to elections, please feel free to reach out to me because obviously I campaigned and I know firsthand what those codes are like. But with no further announcements, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Without objection, the Senate will now stand adjourned until Wednesday, October 30th, 2024.